There are moments when a man steps back, not because he has lost interest, but because something inside him stirs too strongly, too deeply. Do you notice it? His gaze shifts. His words grow shorter. His presence drifts. And you wonder why. Just when it seemed he was opening up, he withdraws. Carl Jung said that emotions the soul cannot grasp immediately are turned into silence by the mind. It's not rejection. It's a primal defense against what is happening within. A woman has touched a deep point in his unconscious, a part he cannot control, yet which transforms him. Men don't always know how to navigate their feelings. If love runs deeper than the surface, if the connection is emotional and not just physical, their inner system falters. The ego, used to control, suddenly faces a force it cannot command. A woman awakens his soul, and his instinct is not to move forward, but to pull back. He ignores you outwardly, but inwardly he is present, watching every nuance of your energy. He is silent. Yet inside a battle rages between reason and desire. What may seem like indifference can actually mark the start of deep infatuation. True love does not always announce itself with grand words, but with heavy, meaningful silences. The man who truly loves does not leap recklessly. First comes confusion, then self-protection, and only afterward, surrender. Jung described it as the conflict between ego and soul, the tension between what we think we can control and what ultimately overwhelms us. When a woman carries this energy, when she reflects something he has unconsciously sought, his rational mind shuts down. His distance is not cold. It's a desperate attempt to regain balance in the face of a force he cannot comprehend. Before you assume he is ignoring you, ask yourself, what if his silence is not indifference, but another language of love? By stepping back, he is simply trying to understand why a part of him needs you, even if he resists it. The human soul does not fall in love through logic, but through symbols, through invisible resonances. When a woman awakens this vibration, this mix of calm and mystery, the man can never be the same. He may move away, yes, but he cannot forget her. Men do not always ignore out of disinterest. Sometimes they ignore because you disarm them. Part 2. The male mind under emotional influence. When a man begins to feel something beyond physical desire, his mind loses balance. He is unprepared to face a connection that exposes him emotionally. For years he has learned to control, to plan, to keep his feelings hidden. But true love respects no boundaries. It flows like an invisible current through his armor. Carl Jung explained that the male soul exists under the tyranny of the rational ego, the part that wants to understand, organize, and control everything. Love, especially true love, comes from the unconscious. It asks no permission, follows no rules. It simply happens. When it does, the man faces an inner conflict between mind and soul. His ego urges him to maintain distance, not to open up, not to feel so deeply. Yet his unconscious draws him to you as if an ancient force irresistibly attracts him. These contradictions confuse him, paralyze him, and often make him withdraw. It is not coldness, it is fear. Fear of losing independence. Fear that you will see his vulnerability. Because even if he does not voice it, the man who truly loves fears he may not be enough for the woman who moves him so deeply. This fear shows itself in contradictory actions, unanswered messages, long silences, evasions. Yet behind this seeming indifference, an invisible battle rages. His mind struggles to regain balance, while his heart has already been touched. Jung said that when a deep emotion breaks into the psyche, a man must internally rearrange himself to integrate it. That is why he needs time before approaching again. He cannot love out of chaos. He must return to his center. You think he's ignoring you? In truth, he is trying to understand you, not as an adventure, but as a symbol. You are the living embodiment of his anima, the feminine principle residing in his unconscious. When a man encounters his anima, he may not realize it. He only feels someone mirrors him, challenges him, and disarms him. That is why he is silent. Your presence has opened a gate within him. He doesn't know how to handle what you awaken, yet he cannot forget you either. As his ego resists, his soul begins to surrender. Sometimes his distance is not goodbye, but the prelude to emotional devotion. A man who feels more than he understands always withdraws briefly, just before truly loving. Part 3. The archetype you activate in him. Carl Jung said that deep within the male soul dwells a female figure. His anima, his emotional essence, intuition, and capacity to love and perceive the unseen. But this energy does not reveal itself easily. It remains hidden until a woman appears to awaken it. When he meets you, he is not responding merely to your looks, words, or gestures. He reacts to something his unconscious recognizes as familiar, even if he cannot explain it. Your presence reaches ancient layers of his soul, emotional memories that follow no logic. That is why he sometimes feels fear. He cannot understand why you matter so much without having done anything to deserve it. Jung said that every woman in a man's psyche can embody different archetypes. The muse who inspires him, the shadow who challenges him, the mother who soothes him, or the spiritual lover who transforms him. When one of these archetypes awakens, he no longer sees you as just one woman among many. He senses something inescapable exists between you. This is not magic, but symbolic energy. Your gaze, your voice, your silence. Everything about you can reflect a part of him he never knew existed. This reflection is so intense it unsettles him. He feels attraction, yes, but also a strange sense of fate. Many men mistake deep love for inner chaos. When the animal awakens, his emotional world opens. Suddenly, he becomes more intuitive, sensitive, vulnerable. And because he does not know how to navigate this new dimension, he reacts defensively. He withdraws, stays silent, or behaves inconsistently. Yet beneath it all, a process of transformation unfolds. The man who truly falls in love does not merely choose to love. He is initiated into a part of himself he never knew. And you, unknowingly, become his most sacred mirror. From Jung's perspective, love is not a romantic story, but an alchemy of the soul. When two people meet on this level, they do not just share feelings. They recognize each other in light and shadow. And in this recognition, something within him changes forever. When a woman touches a man's soul, he does not simply fall in love. She awakens him. Part 4. The fear of losing control. When a man begins to truly fall in love, resistance stirs within him, not against you, but against what you represent. Your presence awakens an emotion in him he cannot control. For the male ego, loss of control feels like loss of identity. Carl Jung explained that the ego fears everything it cannot understand. And deep love, love that exposes him emotionally, is one of the most incomprehensible powers of the soul. That is why many men withdraw just as they begin to feel something real. Not because they are uninterested, but because they sense they could lose themselves in you. Love is not a simple emotion for someone guided by the mind all his life. He can handle attraction, desire, even habit. But love confronts him with vulnerability, with his inner child, with the need to be seen and accepted. And this exposure frightens him. A silent conflict rages within. His mind says, "Control yourself." But his soul whispers, "Surrender." This clash between control and devotion makes him unpredictable. One day he seeks you passionately. The next, he disappears without explanation. This is not contradiction. It is the unconscious dance of fear and love. Jung would call it the crisis of the ego before the soul. The moment a man senses something within him must die if he proceeds. His independence, his self-image, his inner structure. But it is not truly him who dies, but the old version of himself, the one who did not know how to love fully. When he looks at you, he does not just see a woman. He sees the chance to be truly seen, and that disarms him. To love is to reveal oneself, and to reveal oneself is to drop protection. That is why a man who feels deeply withdraws. He does not do it because he does not care, but because he senses he can no longer hide behind his mask with you. And this realization leaves him confused. But there is a beautiful truth in this fear. Only those touched in their innermost being fear losing control. The love that frightens is not weak, it is too real. When the soul falls in love, the ego trembles. Part 5. How a man behaves when he falls in love without knowing it. When a man begins to fall in love, he does not announce it. He does not say it, and often he does not even admit it to himself. Yet his body, his gaze, and his silence betray him. The soul, even when hiding, always leaves traces. Jung said the unconscious reveals itself in the smallest actions, in involuntary gestures, in contradictions the ego cannot control. When love is born in a man unused to feeling deeply, it becomes a tension between two worlds. The world that wants to stay the same, and the one already transformed from within. That is why he behaves contradictory when falling unknowingly. He seeks you but keeps distance. He watches you but avoids your gaze when caught. He seems absent, yet remembers things you thought long forgotten. He speaks of trivial matters, yet there is a tenderness in his voice that never existed before. When you are not there, he grows irritable, quiet, contemplative. He cannot understand why your absence pains him so deeply. "We're nothing serious," he tells himself. This is where the inner struggle begins. His ego tries to explain what his soul has long decided. Jung would call this the process of projecting the anima. When a man projects undiscovered parts of himself onto a woman, he falls in love not only with her, but with the part of himself she reflects. That is why he feels something different with you, a connection he cannot replicate with anyone else. He thinks about you even when he tries to distract himself. He says things like, "I need distance." But in truth, he wants to understand why what he feels frightens him so much. He shows a mixture of protective instinct and emotional insecurity. He wants to protect you, yet fears opening up. He wants to be close, yet takes refuge in silence. And his body language betrays him. His breath catches when you're near. His hands grow restless. His voice softens. He notices every small detail, as if your very existence is a map he cannot stop reading. Even when he appears distant, his vulnerability slips through. A genuine gesture, a look that lasts a heartbeat too long, a sentence that escapes before he can stop it. These are the moments when his unconscious speaks without the ego's permission. The man who falls without knowing it may never say it, but his soul has already chosen you. The unconscious does not lie. It only hides behind silence. Part 6. What you should do when a man enters this state of emotional confusion, the worst thing you can do is try to fix him. It is not about convincing him, proving your worth, or chasing his silence. Because the more you pursue him, the more he hides. And the more you push, the more he protects himself. Carl Jung said the soul is not conquered, but revealed. And the same applies to male love. You cannot force it. You can only awaken it. Your task is not to urge him to feel, but to remain in your center, in that feminine energy that does not need to ask to be chosen. The real power lies in your quiet presence. The moment he senses you are not trying to control him, but simply being yourself, his mind stops seeing you as a threat and begins to recognize you as a refuge. Love that demands nothing heals. Love that does not chase attracts. This is not coldness, but emotional wisdom, knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, when to approach and when to let silence work its magic. Female silence, which does not punish but sustains, is one of the most magnetic forces there is. The man truly connected to you does not fully endure your absence, but he needs it to understand your worth. You must allow him this process without becoming his teacher or savior. Do not heal him. Do not educate him. Do not lead him. Be simple. Keep your energy intact, without fear of losing it. Because whoever is meant for you will not depart. He will transform to reach you. Jung said that any real connection requires space for the soul to breathe. Trust that your serenity will be the mirror in which he recognizes what he cannot find in his chaos. Your balance will be the light showing him the way back without you leaving your center. Conscious love is not a struggle, it is a dance. And in this dance, the wisest step is knowing when to pause. The secret is not hiding, but in not giving yourself completely too soon. Not out of fear, but from understanding that the precious needs space to blossom. The woman who does not chase love causes love to follow her. Part 7. End. If silence speaks of love, he may never say it in words. He may not write to you, seek you, or look at you as before. But if you have touched his soul, that connection remains. Invisible, yet alive. Jung said true connections do not break. They simply change shape. In this sense, silence is not always an ending. Sometimes it is the language of the soul, when words are no longer enough. The man who falls in love in silence undergoes a transformation. He may seem distant, but inside he learns what it truly means to love. Without possession, without control, without masks. He discovers that to love does not mean to dominate, but to give oneself. And you too are transformed in the process, because his distance teaches you what Jung called individuation. The moment when love becomes a conscious choice, not a need. You stop seeking validation and begin to understand that true strength is not in being desired, but in being able to love without losing yourself. It was no coincidence that he entered your life. Every person who touches us deeply awakens something within us. A wound, a shadow, a sleeping truth. He came to show you the value of your rest, the power of your patience, the beauty of your mystery. Even if he does not realize it, you were his mirror. You reminded him that he could still feel, even when he thought he was no longer capable. So if you feel the urge to pursue him, stop. Remember, love born from the soul does not need proof. If he has truly fallen in love, he will return. Not because you call him, but because his soul recognizes the path to yours. And if he does not return, you lose nothing. For what you have given from genuine love is never wasted. It transforms into wisdom, attraction, and light. Your presence will continue to resonate in his unconscious, a gentle echo reminding him of what once disarmed him. A woman who never had to ask to be memorable. True love does not impose itself, and it does not require explanation.